Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a pretty massive human challenge, and that is distance. Think about it. Natural resources, big economic hubs, and the markets where we actually buy stuff, they're almost never in the exact same place. Because of that tricky geographic reality, humanity has spent literal centuries figuring out these incredibly complex systems of mass production and exchange to bridge the gap between where things are made and where things are consumed. So, how exactly did we manage to shrink the world? Well, let's dive right in and find out. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start with the arteries of society, then look at how we mastered land transport, navigated the waters, took to the skies and subterranean pipelines, and finally, how we absolutely conquered the digital frontier. All right, Section 1, the arteries of society. It's actually absolutely crucial to realize that our modern high living standards depend entirely on efficient exchange. And every single complex transport and trade network on Earth really just boils down to two simple things: nodes and links. It's kind of like a giant connect the dots puzzle. The nodes are simply the places, and they're joined together by a series of routes, which are the links. Whether we're talking about global commerce or national defense, these are the fundamental building blocks that connect scattered populations and keep the modern world humming. Moving on to Section 2, Mastering the Land. For the longest time, if you wanted to move goods over land, you had to rely on human porters or pack animals. We're talking horses, mules, camels, even dogs pulling sledges. As you can imagine, it was painstakingly slow and really expensive. It wasn't until the steam engine came along that land transport completely revolutionized and split into two distinct, complementary modes. Road transport became the absolute champion of short, cheap, door-to-door service. Railways, on the flip side, became the heavy lifters. They were explicitly built to move massive volumes of bulky stuff across huge distances. The key here? In any smart transport system, these two aren't competing. They perfectly complement each other. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of our roads today, get this. Humanity has paved roughly 15 million kilometers of motorable roads globally. 15 million. But that infrastructure is actually highly concentrated. North America alone claims 33% of that entire length, boasting the highest road density and the most vehicles of any continent on Earth. Now, when it comes to moving massive, heavy tonnage entirely across continents, we built some absolute engineering behemoths, the transcontinental railways. The Trans-Siberian Railway is just a true standout here, stretching over 9,300 kilometers from St. Petersburg all the way to Vladivostok. It's actually the longest double-tracked and electrified transcontinental railway in the entire world. It was a total game-changer for opening up the Asian region to West European markets. And of course, it sits right alongside other giants like the Trans-Canadian, the Union and Pacific in the US, and the Australian line connecting Perth to Sydney. 96 hours. Think about that for a second. That is all it takes today to travel from London to Istanbul on the Orient Express. Now, contrast that with the grueling 10 days that exact same journey used to take by sea. The invention of these rail lines literally shrank our travel times exponentially. All right, Section 3, Navigating the Waters. So water transport has this one massive advantage. The routes require absolutely zero construction. Plus, the incredibly low friction of water dramatically reduces the energy you need to move really heavy cargo. This gave us these smooth, omnidirectional highways. The absolute busiest of these is the Northern Atlantic Sea Route, which is fittingly called the Big Trunk Route. It links two majorly industrialized hubs, the northeastern US and northwestern Europe, and it handles a staggering 1/4 of the world's entire foreign trade. Of course, sometimes land just stubbornly gets in the way of a perfectly good sea routes. When that happens, we carve out artificial gateways of commerce. Take the Suez Canal. It's a 160-kilometer sea-level route with zero locks, slicing right through to connect the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. Then, contrast that with the Panama Canal. That one is a 72-kilometer engineering marvel connecting the Atlantic and Pacific, but it uses this complex 6-lock system that physically lifts massive, heavily loaded cargo ships 26 meters into the air. That is literally the height of an 8-story building, just to get them across the isthmus. And honestly, the impact of these canals, you just can't overstate it. By cutting through the Panama Canal, ships save a staggering 13,000 kilometers of sea travel between New York and San Francisco. It drastically rewired global shipping routes and saved just an immense amount of time and fuel.
But water transport isn't solely about the open ocean. Our inland waterways have been heavily modified with things like dredging and dams to transform rivers into bustling highways for incredibly heavy cargo, like coal and timber. Over in Europe, the Rhine River is the world's most heavily used waterway. But there are other major commercial arteries too, like the Danube, the massive 11,200-kilometer navigable Volga in Russia, the Great Lakes St. Lawrence system that brings ocean ports deep into the mainland, and of course, the Mississippi, which hooks up the U.S. interior straight to the Gulf of Mexico. Next up, Section 4, Skies and Pipelines.
Taking to the skies brought a total connectivity revolution. Now, yes, air transport is definitely the most expensive option, but it is undeniably the fastest way to move passengers and high-value cargo. But here is the real magic. It totally ignores the friction of hostile environments. Impenetrable mountains, vast snowfields, sprawling deserts, they just aren't barriers anymore. Thanks to this incredibly dense global network, where the US alone actually counts for 60% of the world's airways, today, literally no place on Earth is more than 35 hours away. Trips that used to take months are now just measured in a few hours.
And while the planes are flying high above us, pipelines are quietly doing the heavy lifting below ground, totally unseen. Pipelines are these subterranean networks explicitly designed for the uninterrupted, continuous flow of liquids and gases. We're talking everything from water and petroleum to natural gas and even liquefied coal. A great example is the famous Big Inch pipeline in the U.S., which seamlessly pumps petroleum all the way from the Gulf of Mexico up into the northeastern states. Finally, Section 5, the digital frontier.
When telecommunications finally merged with computers, humanity managed to do something wild. We transcended physical space entirely. See, traditional communication systems, much like physical transport, were completely bound by distance. The further away you sent a message, the more it cost you. But satellite communication, it completely shattered that paradigm. Suddenly, it cost exactly the same to bounce a signal over 500 kilometers as it did over 5,000 kilometers. For the first time ever, physical distance was no longer dictating the price. Since the 1970s, artificial satellites have just been connecting the most remote corners of the globe at absolute breakneck speed. Just look at the rapid technological leaps in India's space program, for example. From launching Aryabhatta in 1975 to Bhaskar 1 in 1979, deploying Rohini in 1980, and then the Apple satellite in 1981. In just a few short years, things like long-distance communication, television, weather forecasting, and crucial rural connectivity became a total reality. And that incredible satellite connectivity really paved the way for cyberspace and the internet. Honestly, the speed at which the internet has spread is entirely unprecedented in human history. Just look at this growth curve. We went from less than 50 million global internet users in 1995, leaping to 400 million in 2000, hitting 2 billion by 2010, and arriving at a mind-blowing 5.4 billion users in 2023. Billions of people are now interacting, trading, and talking in this electronic digital world, and neither the sender nor the receiver ever actually has to move an inch. This connectivity is what really built our globalized society. Back in 1995, the US accounted for a massive 66% of all internet users. But fast forward to 2005, and that share plummeted to just 25%. Now, the US didn't stop logging on. Actually, scratch that. It's more like cyberspace just exploded across developing nations. The vast majority of the world's users are now spread across nations like the UK, Germany, Japan, China, and India. The internet expanded our economic and social space in ways that physical roads literally never could. Which brings us to our final takeaway. We've traced this incredible journey of how humanity shrank the world, from steam engines and transcontinental railways to massive shipping canals, airways, and underground pipelines. But looking at the digital frontier leaves us with a really compelling question. Has modern communication, even more so than our physical transportation networks, truly made the concept of a global village a reality? It's a fascinating thought from our source material to ponder as we continue to build new links in this incredibly connected world. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this sparks your curiosity to go out and learn even more.